Toastmaster, fellow Toastmates, and guests. Wild. I think it's good for everyone to have a little wild in their life. Show of hands, how many of you knew that birds could have heart attacks? Cynthia. One person out of 11. I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't made the decision to do something wild. So, several years ago, when I was just a teenager, and this was several years ago, I volunteered at Blandford Nature Center in Grand Rapids. And the special thing about this nature center is they not only had bees hive, like a bee's hive, a bird's nests, stuffed animals for children to look at, walking trails. They actually had a wildlife care center, and that meant there were living wild animals on the premises. Now you might think, this kind of sounds like a zoo, but no, it's not a zoo. Nature centers are all about nature and the natural. So the objective at the Wildlife Care Center was to take in injured animals and help nurse them back to health with the ultimate goal of releasing them into the wild. So at the time, I was a wildlife biology enthusiast, and I would love to take care of animals, especially wild animals. But my job at the zoo, there's no chance I could do that. So I ended up sitting, looking at the warthogs and the dik-diks and all the other wild animals in the African enclosure, while I was sitting on a stool behind a stand handing out pretzels and frozen lemonade. See, the only way you can actually care for animals at the zoo is if you're either a zoologist or you're going to school to be a zoologist, which I was not. So now here I was at the Nature Center, actually going into cages with great horned owls and turkey vultures and red-tailed hawks. I was so excited. Now, each of the animals at the Nature Center had specific needs, and I'm going to talk about two of my favorites today. Great horned owls. Now, these guys needed their space, because when you walked by their cage, they were just fine, but as soon as you walked off the path and were going around toward the door, they knew what was going on, and they were not happy about it. So here I am with my rake. My duty today was to rake up the owl pellets. They cough up undigested mice and other stuff that they can't process in their system. So here I am. I'm walking around the cage, and of course they're starting to get mad at me. Well, scared really. So I get into the cage, and here's the owl right here, and I'm just kind of inching my way, just close enough so I can get the rake and get the little pellets under their favorite perch. And this is what they're doing. They poof their feathers up twice the size of their normal body, so they look all intimidating. Actually, what they really are is just scared out of their wits. But of course, their natural defense system is to make them look mad and intimidating, and of course, I'm scared at this point. So I'm just carefully getting those pellets up. Now, the cage was a little small, and that's what made it a little more scary. But if you went back into the enclosure way out in the back, where they were rehabilitating injured owls, it was called the flight enclosure. And what you would do is, it was this big long barn, and there was a big hole up here where they would usually roost. There was another pole over on the other end, and you had to go over to the one side and clap at them and yell at them and try and get them to fly so they could exercise their wings. And that wasn't as bad, because you knew that the owl had some place to go other than right at your face. So it was wild. It was exciting. Now, you would think that the owl is the smartest of the birds, right? I mean, we see Disney movies all the time with the great, smart, wise owl. And besides, look at the size of their head compared to their body. I mean, that's a large head for a bird, right? Well, out of all of the residents at the Nature Center, the bird that I would give the award for the most intelligent animal would be the turkey vulture. Look at the size of that head compared to the body. You think that the brain was probably the size of a walnut. Well, these creatures were conniving, I tell you. Want to pass it on? All right. My boss actually told me, all you have to do to go in their cage is pretend you have a pair. And the reason he said that, they would recognize what gender you were. And if you were a female, they would pick on you more than if you were a male. These birds were, I mean, one of their defenses, instead of poofing up and hissing at you, is to vomit on you. How many of you want that? Or to come up and peck you? Where the owls were just scared and they just wanted you to leave them alone, and they would actually fly away if you went up to them. These guys tried to come up to you. So here I am raking their cage, and the one up here is just fine. He's like a diversion. He's, just kind of flapping his wings every once in a while, so I look at him. The other one's on the floor, and he's looking at me, and he's like looking away and sidestepping toward me. Like if he looks away, then I can't see him. So he's kind of doing this, and then suddenly when he gets close enough, he looks at me and nips at my shoe. And I still have those shoes this day. There's a little piece missing from them. But it was a wild experience. It really was. Now, this is all a very nice story, entertaining and hopefully just a good break from your workday. But what I really want you to take from this is that in order to have those wild experiences, you need to open yourself up to them, a gnosis, and just go out there and experience it for yourself. Back to you, Mr. President.